The keen-eyed among you may have noticed a few oddities in these clips. First, how can Rina instantly trigger a chain when being swapped to? Second, just how in the world is Lucy chain attacking 3 times in a row? And third, what's actually going on here? If you think about how chain attacks actually work though, it all starts to make sense. For those who are not aware of how chain attacks work, I'd refer you to my Evelyn guide. Don't worry, no need to watch the full 38 minutes, just a short section that explains what are double chains. There are a few things I didn't cover in the explanation from that guide though, and they relate to how chain attacks are proc to begin with. Some attacks in Zenless Zone Zero have the heavy attack property assigned to them. This is used for some characters' kits, like Trigger. She will proc her enhanced Astra shot only if the active character lands a heavy attack. If they have no heavy attacks, that means no Tatra shots. More importantly than character kit interactions though, is that heavy attacks are what will trigger chain attacks, and no heavy attacks also means no chain attacks. For moves that do have heavy attacks, setting the chain attack mode to manual can help us avoid triggering chain attacks with heavies for most moves, namely basic attacks, dodge counters, specials, EX specials, quick assists, and assist follow-ups. Chains and ultimates though are explicitly absent, and since they all land in heavy attacks, that means they always proc chain attacks. Except that's not quite true. You may have experienced a fight where you use an ultimate, or perhaps even have automatic chain on, but no chain attack prompt comes up. This is because chain attacks need the character that procs it to be within a certain distance. For most agents, the hitbox of their attack is going to be lined up with the chain attack distance requirement. If the attack lands, then the chain is triggered. Ranged agents though can have attacks that hit much further than the threshold for triggering chains. Even melee characters with large hitboxes on their ultimates, like Yanagi, can experience this. And unlike regular range moves which suffer damage fall off if you're far from the enemy, ultimates always do their damage on full, no penalty applied. Ultimates are not chain attacks though, and unfortunately these are always done from fixed distances. If you proc a chain attack close to the enemy, your incoming character will appear next to the agent that triggered the chain. But if you proc one from a distance, they will spawn right by the enemy, with how far away each character appears being specific to the chain attack. So unfortunately, despite us being able to avoid triggering chains by distancing ourselves, it's only something we can do with ultimates, and not the chain attacks themselves. There is one other requirement to proc chain attacks beyond distance, meaning that the heavy attack has to happen on an active character. Normally, Lycon's EX will trigger a chain attack on its final hit, as that's a heavy attack. But if we swap out of the EX before the heavy attack portion connects, then that means we won't get a chain attack. For chains and ultimates, that opens up some opportunities. Some characters have this built into their kits, but Nissa's ultimate is never going to be proccing chains, even though technically it can. This is because you're always going to want to be quick assisting out of it before its heavy attack hits. With manual chain, that means no chain trigger on the quick assist. Astra's ultimate also lets us swap out before it procs a chain, although it does force us into another character's chain attack. Manual chain can't help us here, but it does mean we don't have to trigger it with Astra. We can swap back to her with a chain and use a second stack of her ult to chain again. Some characters, like Lucy, take so long for the heavies to hit, you're better off just swapping out early. The pieces of the puzzle should start falling into place now. Chain attacks need us to land a heavy attack, but only on the active character. Some skills have a very large time lag between casting and heavy attacks. So much so that you can swap out and back before the attack is over. That means that so long as you swap back to the character that casts the skill in time for the heavy attack, you can get an instant proc. It's not technically instant, you're still waiting, but you get to do something productive during that time, opening up combo routes that just weren't possible before, like 19 dash attacks on Harumasa with Rina. Unfortunately, this doesn't work for chain attacks. Unlike ultimates, almost all characters have tight animation locks which prevent swaps until their heavies connect. I say almost all characters because there is one singular exception. Lucy. Lucy's bore attacks like her chain, ultimate, or EX are projectiles. This means that it has both a disjointed hitbox from Lucy herself and, most importantly, travel time. Lucy's animation lock finishes shortly after the projectile is released, giving us a split second of time to swap out before it hits. Since heavy attacks only proc chains if they come from the active character, that means Lucy's chain is no longer able to force more chain attacks when it connects. Every new chain being a new string, that means you aren't locked out of Lucy when you proc another chain. So you can now chain 3 times in a row with Lucy if you so wish. It's effectively a free chain cancel. Just use Lucy chain, then swap out before it lands. That's it. It's quite literally that simple. This has more users than just DPS Lucy nukes though, because it effectively resets the chain string without using up a chain count. If you want to chain twice with Evelyn, you'd need to cancel out after her chain attack, then trigger again with another character, meaning you're losing out on a chain. But if you instead use Evelyn's chain attack first, then go into Lucy and execute the swap tag, you benefit from Lucy's chain without sacrificing double Evelyn chains. The same concept can apply to any character, like Soldier 11, who also really wants to be using multiple chain attacks every stun if possible. So it can help with pushing that extra last bit of damage in Lucy teams. Without on-demand support like Astra and Aliko can be, being able to squeeze an extra 1000% motion value from Lucy's chain and refresh the Chiron buff isn't too bad. Plus, it just looks pretty cool. With the information we have, there's one more tech hiding here, and that's being able to interrupt chain attacks before they're finished. Remember 1.0 Yuan, where you could time her EX heavy attack to proc halfway during her chain? Well, that tech makes a return. Any non-chain heavy attacks that land during a chain cannot interrupt it, as only chain attack heavies are allowed to proc other chains if you're mid-animation. If you recall, Lucy's chain is a projectile, or rather 3 projectiles, which can hit at different times. So by swapping out of Lucy's chain before the first ball hits, but returning to her before the final ball hits, means that you can get a chain prompt mid-chain attack. After all, it's the chain attacks heavy that's landing mid-animation, not an EX. The Lucy techs in particular are already quite difficult to do, but they're outright impossible in the really big-bodied enemies. The bigger the enemy, the bigger their hurtbox, which means that projectile attacks will hit them faster. It's evident enough by the sound of the hit, but it becomes especially obvious when you track it in slow motion. There are ways of making the tech easier to execute. Many attacks are able of knocking back enemies. Even elites can be pushed back with the right moves, which means more time for the projectile to travel and more leniency in executing the tech. But some big-bodied enemies have only very minor pushback, even when in stun, so not much you can do about them. To be fair, there's a few other limitations of these techs too. The instant chain tech is something only Rina can do at the moment. There are multiple characters with long and delayed attacks, but they remain on field while doing them, and you can't swap back to on-field characters. Aftershock characters, like Trigger, are the exception, but currently there are no Aftershock heavy attacks from inactive characters. Definitely something to look out for in 2.0 units though. Plus, the heavy needs to be a projectile with a disjointed hitbox, so that it doesn't get interrupted when swapping out and back. To be fair, Rina does have some flexibility with executing the tech. Any heavy attack will do, so Rina can also do this with her EX. It doesn't even have to be for proccing chains. Agents like Trigger, whose starters only activates on active characters as heavy attacks, can benefit from this. Get creative and you can start getting some really cool rotations. As for the triple chain and chain interrupt, they are Lucy only techs, since she is the only character with a ranged chain attack that you can swap out of. There is a universal gimmick though, and that's the distance requirement. It can open up some unorthodox but new combo routes for different characters, like double chains on Harumasa with Trigger DPS.
Ever heard the whistle of arrows in flight?
My bullets are one with the wind.
Keep it up.
I hope you like this breakdown. If you're interested in more niche tech videos like this, or maybe just want to see detailed character guides, then do like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell. I've got more videos coming. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.